I believe that Vogue is a very inclusive and diverse platform that we celebrate people from all over the world with different cultures, different beliefs. I would say that they are part of an incredibly important creative time.
Bienvenidos, bienvenidas al arranque de la segunda temporada de Vogue On. Estamos súper contentas.
Siento que septiembre es el mes perfecto para arrancar esta segunda temporada de Vogue On. Estamos empezando esta nueva temporada pues con muchas noticias, muchos cambios.
Bueno, va muy relacionada a nuestra invitada que, bueno, visitamos las oficinas de Nueva York en abril, una semana antes de la Met Gala, en donde platicamos no solamente sobre lo que iba a venir en los siguientes meses, sino también sobre la Met Gala, sobre el rol de la moda global actual con las audiencias locales. Y bueno, es Wintour. Hace unos meses se anunció que dejaría su rol después de 35 años como editor-in-chief de Vogue Estados Unidos para enfocarse en este rol global.
Y fue como una noticia que nadie se la estaba esperando. Y yo creo que la duda más grande era quién la iba a reemplazar, pero al final pues no la están reemplazando porque su rol, como lo conocemos, va a cambiar. Y el rol de la editora, que ahora es Head of Content, pues ha cambiado muchísimo. Y bueno, después de varios meses en búsqueda de una Head of Content nueva, la semana pasada se anunció que la nueva Head of Content va a ser o será Chloe Mao. Hola a todos, arrancamos la segunda temporada de Vogue On.
Hola Karla, buenos días. Estamos súper contentos de arrancar esta segunda temporada en las oficinas de Vogue en Nueva York.
Con una invitada muy especial, Wintour. Anna, welcome. Thank you so much for being here with us.
Thank you for having me.
We're really excited to start the second season of Vogue On, which is the first Vogue podcast in Spanish. So we will start right away.
So your role at Vogue has evolved over 25 years so. How has evolved and what it's like to oversee Vogue in the digital era?
Well, obviously, so much has changed. I think it's closer to 35 years that I've been with Vogue, not 25. And obviously, the world of media has undergone a vast transformation. When I first started, we were only concentrated on print. I think we used to even take the afternoon off and go to the beach sometimes because we just, wasn't that crazy busy the way it is today. And now we look at everything across all of our platforms, and we look at it not only locally, but we look at it globally. So we create podcasts like we're doing this morning. We create video. We look at social. We look at events. We look at digital. We look at our philanthropic efforts. Obviously, print remains a very important part of what we do, but we have an e-commerce business that's very healthy and growing. So I think what one has to always remember about the world that we work in is that it's constantly evolving. And those that are resistant to change and don't embrace change are the ones that tend to get left behind. And it's always extraordinary to me how people don't embrace it, because to me it's one of the wonderful things about being in this amazing job that I have is that one does have the opportunity constantly to be looking at things differently.
Anna, what qualities do you look for in leadership positions and when you're thinking about a head of content and creatives, photographers, stylists, and editors in the industry?
Well, I think if you're looking for leaders in whatever area, it's very important to work with people that you like and that you're pleased to see when they walk into your office, people that are decisive, that have a very clear understanding of what their local territory or their market needs, requires, are interested in, but also understand the importance of thinking globally as well. I think I look for people that are courageous and fearless and have a sense of humor and understand what it is and how wonderful it is to be part of the Vogue community.
You've been so instrumental to the careers of different photographers and stylists, and that's something that, is really admired. It can really change the course of their career, right?
Well, I think working for Vogue is the pinnacle. If you're a photographer or you're a stylist, or I choose to think it's the pinnacle. And what's important to remember when you're embarking on a relationship with a new creative is that it doesn't happen overnight. And I think it's very helpful to start with that point of view and explain to whoever it is that you might be thinking about building an ongoing partnership with, is that it takes time, and that Vogue has to learn their point of view and their creative way of working, and they have to learn what ours is. And that doesn't develop overnight. It can take months, years. And there's a certain point when things click. And I always remember Karl talking to me about how important it was to be patient. Not that he was a very patient person, but he worked with Alan Wertheimer so closely over so many years. And I think that the balance that the two of them had is one that we should all look at and admire, because Karl would always push and want to move things forward, and Alain always had and Bruno Pavlovsky always had a very steady hand and didn't panic or expect things to go too fast or too rapidly. They understood you were in it for the long haul, and that is how you develop an ongoing creative relationship.
Ana, as Karla was saying, this is Vogue first podcast in Spanish. So we wanted to talk also about Latinos and how the fashion industry has become more inclusive, not only with designers, but also in the pages of magazines.
Well, I think once we embarked on the global expansion of Vogue, where we weren't working in silos and being, I hope, collegial, but staying sort of focused on our own territories, I think we have had the ability to open up not only the pages, but the videos and events to a global community. So I think if we're talking about the influence of Latino musicians like Bad Bunny, whom I think we've both worked with and many Vogues have worked with and truly admire, that would be one example. Or Frida Escobar, who's working on the expansion at the Metropolitan Museum, which is going to take probably another decade, but she's the architect behind the new modern wing. Or other Spanish designers in the past, Carolina and Oscar, obviously rooted in where they came from, but also at the same time embracing what New York was when they were working in the city. So I think what's amazing about being part of a global community is those of you in Latin America or those of you in Japan or editors working in the United Kingdom, they all have the ability to make all the global Vogues know about a talent that they're very excited about. And we can all share in putting that talent on a global platform. So it's very different than it used to be. I think, everywhere we look, the makeup of a country is changing. And I think we all believe in a very diverse and inclusive world and in a diverse and inclusive creative culture that we all should share with each other.
I know. I think it's been really supportive. I think for the artists that we've featured, we did a special on Earth Day last week, and American Vogue reposted it. And obviously people get excited when they see their work in Vogue Mexico, but it's almost, they get even more excited when it's in American Vogue. And
any Vogue. It's a global newsroom. It's a global network, and we have the ability to shine a light on whatever creative field somebody might be in with millions and, hundreds of millions of our audiences. I mean, I think something like the Met or Vogue World is both are perfect examples of how Vogue has changed in its approach to content. When we first started working with the Met, it was very much focused on the audiences and guests and from the United States, maybe a little bit from the UK. But as we've all started to work over the past several years much more closely together, we all try and understand what guests, what point of view might be interesting to different markets and made sure that they're part of the nights. And that way we can increase our global footprint, our global audience, and global awareness. And it's obviously important for Vogues around the world, but I think it's also wonderful for creative talent and others that come to the event or are part of the event.
You'd mentioned earlier Oscar de la Renta, who's Dominican, and Carolina Herrera, who's Venezuelan. Do you think they had a particular point of view, considering that they were from Latin America? I mean, they paved the way for so many designers now.
Oh, definitely. I mean, I think both believed in color and print and loved and felt very connected to where they came from. Oscar was a particularly close friend of mine, and I used to go to the Dominican Republic with Annette and Oscar, many times a year with the children, and I could see the love for his country and all the philanthropic efforts that he invested in the Dominican Republic, whether it was his orphanages or helping the tourism industry or just being an amazing ambassador for the country. He always remembered and loved where he came from, and that, I think, was infused in his collections. You never had any doubt that he came from anywhere else. But at the same time, he connected so well with the social life of New York. He was married to an equally generous and wonderful New York philanthropist and humanitarian, and the two of them were so much part of the fabric of New York society, as was Carolina and Ronaldo, no question.
Thank you. Now we're seeing the work of Willy Chavarria and Raul Lopez from Luar that are really shaping. I mean, they're very different in their approach, but you also see the influence of both cultures.
It's less about a certain branch of society and more about a cultural awareness and a commitment to the LGBTQ plus community, and really being in touch with a very strong street culture, but also knowing what their roots are and what they believe are part of their heritage. And it's wonderful to see, both the designers that you mentioned having such an extraordinary recognition.
Ana, do you think, or would you agree that Latinos, artists, musicians, actors, actresses are having a big moment? If so, what would you say?
Well, I don't believe in moments. I believe that we are a very inclusive organization at Condé Nast. I believe that Vogue is a very inclusive and diverse platform, that we celebrate people from all over the world with different cultures, different beliefs. And I think anything that we can do to help spread that sense of inclusiveness is so important. So I wouldn't say that they were having a big moment. I would say that they are part of an incredibly important creative time.
Absolutely. What is one piece, I'm sure everyone would love to know this, but one piece of advice you would give to, I guess, not just Latino fashion designers, but creatives in the industry?
Well, I mean, that's a question that I'm often asked, and I always say, the same thing. I see a lot of young people that are very ambitious to make their own mark at a very young age, and yes, there are some that can do that, but they are few and far between, and far more important to work with a designer or creative that you admire and learn your craft and learn actually how to make a dress, learn how to think about a collection, learn about culture, learn about the arts, walk in the streets, see what men and women and people from all different nationalities are wearing and what they look like and what they seem to be. You get so many ideas from just hanging out somewhere like Central Park at the weekend. It's when people lock themselves away and always say, I'm working. You can't work if you're not out and if you're not looking, going to museums, going to theater, watching movies, reading books. So I think people need to invest in themselves culturally, as well investing in their careers, and take a longer term view. I think too much goes too fast. And many particularly fall on their feet, particularly when one's going through challenging times like we are right now. Much better to go slowly, learn your craft, learn your art, and be ready to emerge like the proverbial butterfly when you're ready, not too early.
Absolutely. I remember when I interviewed at Vogue in 2001, someone said, be sure to Anna's going to ask you what you read, where you're going. And it's so important, as you said, for young people to go out. And more than anything, I think, really start at whatever you're doing, learn from...
and enjoy it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I know you're very busy, and I just have one last question.
Sure.
On a scale of 1 to 10, 10 obviously being the most stress, how does planning the Met does it get any easier, any less stressful?
Well, each one is different colors, almost like putting together a Broadway show. You have to raise the funds. You have to understand from the curators, in this case, Monica and Andrew, what the cultural context of the exhibition is, and you have to sort of think about who the right co-chairs would be, and everything is connected. Who the creative collaborators are that you might want to invite to be part of it. Yeah. So yes, we've done it for a very long time, but each one is different. Like if you think about, say, camp or punk, that both had a sense of humor and a sort of slightly subversive text to them, or something that's more historical, like Dangerous Liaison, Anglomania. Each one requires a different kind of planning and sensibility and thinking about the guests that would make sense with the theme of the exhibition. So they're all very different. They all require a different way of thinking about what they may be. But this one particularly has been a superfine tailoring black style, has been, I think, particularly meaningful and has brought a sense of urgency and purpose around it as we look at what's happening around the world and how important it is to recognize diversity and inclusion. And it's also been unbelievably rewarding, and we've done a number of outreaches to different communities, one in Harlem that the Metropolitan Museum organized, and then just one last week in Bedford-Stuyvesant in Brooklyn. And the incredible reception, we went with the curators and some Black creators who talked about what the exhibition theme meant to them. And then just hearing from the audiences afterwards how meaningful the theme of the exhibition was to their community, and how they were going to bring their children, and they were going to make sure their children were dressed as a sign of respect. It's been very moving to understand, and how liberating and how full of joy and confidence and self-respect the idea of superfine is to the Black community. And that makes one want to do better.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Anna, for your time.
Thank you so much. We're very excited to kick off the second season of Full On.
Of course. Nice to see you. Thank you.